Unless you've been living under a rock or you're Amish, in which case you're probably not even watching this, so I'm not really sure why I mentioned it. But there has been a game that has released this year and it has landed in some level of controversy for its inspiration and likeness to a number of games and franchises, perhaps most notoriously for the Nintendo money printing service, otherwise known as Pokemon, but with guns. This game also hit the news recently for spiking at over 2 million concurrent players on Steam. So today, let's take a deeper look into that game so you know if it's worth your time and money. And in case you haven't clocked on yet, that game is Palworld. My name is BigWynter and let's dive right in. So first off, before we jump to any conclusions and make any bold statements of plagiarism and plain intellectual property theft, let's actually take a more critical look at Palworld and what it has to offer. At its core, Palworld is primarily a survival game with a primary focus on surviving and building yourself a home. After a short cutscene that seems to have taken some inspiration from a certain Nintendo-owned franchise and honestly a little of Genshin, you're then taken to a suspiciously similar character creation system to Ark Survival Evolved, albeit a more anime reskin. Once your monstrosity has been created, you'll then start your adventure at your spawn point of choice, again very similarly to another survival-based game. In the top right, you'll be given a set of tutorial-based tasks to familiarize yourself with the game, which to be honest is a downside more than you get from Ark, so well done Palworld, 1-0 to you. After some fairly typical survival game tasks like crafting a workbench, tools, and getting yourself some food, you'll then be met with a slightly less typical survival task, but I bet it's one you're probably at least somewhat familiar with and is one of the most contentious topics surrounding Palworld. Once you've increased your level enough, again, totally not Ark, you'll be given the task of catching your first pal, definitely not Pokemon. But how, I hear you ask? How would you catch this very original creation? Well, that's actually a really good question. You do so after crafting a pal sphere, which is most certainly a very original creation. To capture these pals, simply dodge their attacks and beat the ever-living shit out of them until they're within an inch of their life. Once you've done this, yeet a pal sphere at their forehead and Bob's your uncle, you got a sheep. Around the map, you'll find a number of these pal creatures of varying manners of shapes, sizes, and abilities. Some of them, you might even say show some similarity to a certain Nintendo franchise, but with these pals, you can do more than just battle. Yes, whilst they do come in pretty clutch when it comes to catching newer and more powerful pals, another thing you can do with them is you can subject them to slave labor at your humble abode. When capturing a pal, check to see what it's good at, and then make sure to work it as hard as you can, because that's actually something you can do. Yes, the game has a mechanic to work a pal harder than its means, which I definitely do not remember that part of Pokemon. Furthermore, the further you advance your tech tree, you can start using some of these pals as mounts after creating their saddles. Again, definitely not Ark. Or you can then start using them as tools or even weapons. Yes, my friend, your eyes do not deceive you. That Flareon is now a flamethrower. Once you have your home, you've advanced your tech tree, and you've completed the tutorial section, the world is your oyster. Explore on foot, mount, or glide across the open plains, definitely not just as you would in Breath of the Wild. Oh, and you want to go up there? Sure, just climb up there and watch your stamina go down. But hey, it's not a wheel, so it's not the same. Get Nintendo. On your adventures, there will be a variety of chests, human encounters, and shrines and secrets to take home to your base, which you can thankfully actually fast travel to. And yes, there are other humans in the game, and yes, the rumors are true. The pal spheres do actually work on other things other than pals, so yeah, you can enslave this poor f***ing man to work on your berry patch. Additionally, around the world, you'll find a number of towers and world bosses to really put yourself and your pals to the test. And yes, whilst I'm sure you've heard the phrase Pokemon with guns by this point, I haven't actually got any weapons for myself yet, so I can't comment on them right now. But I actually do want to get there. If that's something you'd like to see live, drop me a follow over on Twitch and maybe come catch some gameplay. Now, I know it seems like I've done nothing but poke fun at this game for the last 5 minutes or so, but despite all the I've been talking, I'm actually thoroughly enjoying myself. Pokemon engulfed a large period of my childhood, and Ark Survival Evolved scratched a strange place in my brain that no other survival game has quite managed to do. And weirdly, Palworld seems to have nestled its way into the same recess of my smooth little think box. Whilst yes, there are various assets and mechanics that have honestly pretty much been ripped from a number of other different franchises, Ark, Pokemon, Zelda, Horizon, and I'm sure there are a number of others I've probably missed or I'm yet to discover, but I don't personally think that matters, at least not on the consumer level. Now, I do think that there should always be an element of chasing the new and development within the gaming industry. All of these titles people are slamming Palworld for stealing from are great titles that the vast majority of people love. And sure, that's exactly why people are pissed. They don't want to see the favorite franchises they love being ripped off of, but all the things that people say are copied are good and fundamentally fun. That's why Palworld is fun. I don't think Palworld is maliciously affecting any of these franchises in question. Pokemon especially is a very different type of game to Palworld, and I don't think it's poaching any players. Similarly, with Breath of the Wild or even really Ark, partly because it's a dead-ass janky game that I adore, but nobody really plays it anymore. So why be mad about it? If it's fun, sit down and enjoy it. I don't imagine the full access version of the game is going to bring anything so groundbreaking that it's going to keep bringing players in over time, but play it for now if you can. Although, since writing this script, the devs have started working on and putting out raid bosses to further the end game content. So I'm actually slightly more optimistic than I was previously, and so far I'd actually kind of recommend it, especially if you have Game Pass, as you have access to it for free. On Steam, now that's honestly a different story because it's not exactly the cheapest, but if you want to sink 2 hours into it to get a feel, do that and get a refund if you really think it's a waste. Or don't, man, it's your money. But with that said, let me know if you're going to give this game a go yourself, or if you have any thoughts on the controversy surrounding the game. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Let me know what you'd like to see next on the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and much love.